On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, man, have I ever missed that winning feeling.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the number one sports podcast network anywhere. It is Wednesday, November the 19th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 12 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. 100% free to join. We'd love to see you there. It's a great little community we got building around the show, which right now, as the team is good, I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm going to get a little sappy on today's show to kick things off. We'll get to that in a second, but honestly, it's nothing's more fun than being online and posting with your friends about the basketball team when they're playing well, and the Discord is a great place for that to happen, as all the other websites where that used to happen are now sad and broken, or both. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started, and we will get started here on your Wednesday edition of the show. Some odds and ends on today's show, a few different things I want to talk about. We're going to talk about Darko Rajaković, give him some flowers, because he has been extremely good coaching this team. We'll talk about why that has been and what's been so impressive about the start for the Raptors and for their head coach a little later on. And we're going to talk about Mamu as well, who is the one guy right now who is making me sort of fret/ponder the offseason, because I think it might already be time to start thinking about how they keep this dude around long term. We'll get into that later on. But I want to live in the moment for a second off the top here. The Raptors take on the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. They have won 8 of their last 9 games, looking for 9 out of 10 and a 5th straight victory. And look, there's a chance they can kind of tease this thing out to a hell of a lot more wins if they pick this one up. They've got the Wizards on Friday and some just like not very good opponents coming up on the schedule over the next little bit. The Cavs on Monday is kind of the big one. Can they win that game? We'll see. But yeah, I am just, the overwhelming feeling I have had watching these games as soon as they end is, wow, I can't wait to see another one of these things. That's been basically my general state of existence since the Toronto Raptors started playing games this year and started winning games this year. And I think this is what it's supposed to feel like. And this is what I've missed so much about, people know who listen to the show. I'm a regular season freak. I think we undervalue the regular season way too much. And I think this is the feeling you get robbed of when you sit years out to not be competitive and chase lottery balls. And when you sort of, let's say it how it is, kind of mismanage your way into not being a competitive team. And I'm just so happy that they're back and playing basketball worth giving a damn about. Isn't that what this is kind of all about? I couldn't give a damn right now about what the ceiling is of this team 2-3 years from now. I don't really care about what happens this year in the playoffs. You get to that when you get to that. And I think the fact that the journey there is so fun on a nightly basis right now, that these sort of random nights during the regular season where it's cold and it's dark are being filled in by a basketball team that's like really easy to like, very fun to watch, playing a very sort of likable and interesting brand of basketball that is intriguing to kind of break down on the micro and macro levels. For all that to be happening, like, this is the stuff that, gets me up in the morning as a fan. And I hope people are feeling the same way about it too and enjoying this while it's happening. Like, there's no guarantee that this continues all season long. I think they have a pretty solid statistical backing behind what they're doing so far, and things seem to be pretty sustainable. We'll get into what Darko's doing and, some of that stuff that I think can carry throughout the year. But, injuries are a thing. Life is a thing. Nothing's guaranteed. And so for now, I really just hope folks are savoring this in the moment and kind of sinking their teeth into this team as best they can, because this is the most fun we've had watching this team as a collective in years. Yeah, it was fun at the end of the Scotty Barnes rookie year where they made the playoffs and put a little spook into the Sixers. That was nice, but it was also on the heels of the Tampa season, which was like so depressing. This does feel like it's kind of the first time since pre-COVID where there's a team that you feel like there's a runway for and that you feel like there's an investment worth putting into following this team night to night throughout the year. And look, man, the world is hard. Like, it's tough for a lot of people. It's heavy, it's grim in a lot of ways, and it can be overwhelming. And it's not lost on me that sports are very much interconnected with a lot of the worst corners of the world and a lot of the worst sort of dark underbellies of modern society. If we're going to get big picture here, like, sports ain't clean in all of this. There's a lot of kind of ugly. I mean, we've seen it this year with the Chauncey Billups stuff and Terry Rozier and all this stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of ugly tendrils to pro sports, but the thing that keeps me coming back is someone who is, yes, aware of these things. And it's not like I'm dismissive of them. I think I try to be a sort of informed fan about the stuff I'm, taking in and the people I'm supporting and all that stuff. But at the same time, like, there is something to a good sports team that kind of gets to a more sort of root level community building thing that I think kind of really supersedes a lot of the more ugly stuff at the bigger levels, the higher end stuff when you talk about sports and business and stuff. Like, I just think, like, there's nothing quite like having a good team to rally around, and the community it fosters of, you kind of have something in common with everybody when a team has captured the imagination. I'm not saying the Raptors have yet to capture the imagination of the nation or anything like that. I was there in 2019. Like, this is not that just yet, but like I said, there's like nothing better than the sort of night to night routine of knowing your team is going to play a competitive game and just like going online and posting with your friends when the team is good. Like, the sense of community and buy-in from people who I've spent like the last 10 years talking about basketball with, like, it's ratcheted up now. People are into it. People are excited again. And there's like a real tangible value to that in a world that is constantly trying to break everybody down at every turn. Having something, as even if it's just, very clearly the distraction that we all know sports is, having a team like this makes it a little easier to kind of get through the day to day for those who like to tap into sports as a means of distraction. I just think, like, we talk so much about the value of this contract and that contract and, oh, does this team have title upside and all that? And like, we forget a lot about all the stuff in between, the optimization of the sport at the very highest end that brings joy and happiness to people. And a team like this with, modest expectations, not crazy expectations that they're currently vastly overshooting. That's the kind of thing that is these are like core sports memories that the Toronto Raptors are in the midst of starting to form. Still early, still November basketball. We'll see when they go win the NBA Cup next month, if that really starts to get the ball rolling. It's happening. Game 3 of the Cup this Friday. Wizards. The Wizards are really bad. It's in their hands. It's coming home. But, I just think, like, it's, I don't know, man. I'm just very emotional thinking about it. Like, the number of people who, like, I would interact with during the title run and the sort of lead up to those years, the 2013 through 2019 run of Kyle and DeMar and all of the sort of just nightly joy that those teams sparked, and the people and friendships I made following those teams. I'm friends with people who I became friends with over the Kyle DeMar teams today. Like, that is anyone you listen to this podcast, Vivek, Katie, Joe Wolfond, all the guests that I have on this show, most of those connections were forged while we were really rallying around that Kyle DeMar team. And I think it's cool that there's another opportunity for that sort of community to build around this one. It makes me emotional, man. Maybe it's just stupid. Maybe they're 9-5. It's November. I don't know. But the number of people who, I know in my life who typically they kind of buy into a team, playoffs or whatever, when a team is really kind of rolling, fair weather fans in my life. I've had people reaching out to me who I haven't heard from in a few years being like, damn, this team's good, huh? And like, that's a nice thing to hear, man. That's a nice thing to, welcome back into the day-to-day life, is talking about the fun, cool local basketball team. And again, who knows where this is going? Who knows if they're going to win 44 games, 52 games, whatever it is? Are they going to get swept in the playoffs? All of it's part of the fun. And I'll remind you of if you have those sort of big doomer concerns about where this could go later in this year, the Toronto Raptors lost 2 first-round series back in 2014 and 2015. One of them is about as ugly a way as you possibly could find. But being in those conversations, being a playoff team, being good and having good players was the thing that portended getting better down the line. And that is the position the Raptors find themselves in now. If this continues, all of the big picture questions get easier to answer because the guys you have now are playing well, raising their sort of stock throughout the league, and all of these decisions that are going to come eventually get easier. We'll get into some of those decisions later when we talk about Mamu. But in the meantime, I think knowing that you're on a fun journey, wherever this is going, I think should be enough to keep people pretty juiced night to night. I don't know, man. It's nice when the team is cool and wins games. I really, really miss this. And I've missed getting to talk about a good team. I feel like I'm bad at talking about a bad team on this podcast. I feel like I'm like back in my element talking about a team where there's like interesting X's and O's stuff happening. And speaking of that, we're going to talk about Darko Rajaković, who's kind of drawn up all kinds of wonderful stuff. So we will talk about him, the wonderful job he's done to start this year, and why a lot of what he's doing feels pretty sustainable for this team to hold up. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. Yes, that's right. It's time to talk about Sean's underwear again. And I'll tell you, when they sent me some Skims last year, when first we had them sponsoring the show, I was thrilled because I put them bad boys on and my life changed because they are now the single most comfortable pair of underwear I own. I asked for them for Christmas. I asked for them, like I'm a dad now. I don't ask for cool, fun, interesting gifts. I ask for underwear and socks and shirts. And let me tell you, the Skims underwear for men are extremely comfortable. And I am a pretty persnickety guy when it comes to my underoos. I am a dude who runs hot, having comfortable underwear that are that stay in shape. They don't like gather moisture or stuff like that. It is a huge deal. Shop Skims Men's right now at skims.com. When you place your order, use the code podcast in the post-purchase survey and select our show from the drop-down menu to let them know that we sent you. Plus, the Skims holiday shop is open, so if you're looking for the perfect gift, this is the season. Skims have you covered. Go check it out, skims.com. Today's show is also brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. And as I've talked about before, I'm not much of a sports wager, but when I do, I like a long-term futures bet. I like to really play a hunch and say, yeah, I'm smart, and I will be smart and proven right in 9 months or 10 months or a year, whatever it is. So if you feel like you got a hunch on a team coming out of the Eastern Conference, for example, in the NBA, to get waxed by either the Thunder or the Nuggets in the final, that's going to happen for sure. You can throw some money down on them. Maybe it's the Toronto Raptors. Maybe you think the Raptors got the juice to go all the way in the East. Maybe you think it's some other team. Maybe it's the Cavs or the Knicks or the Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young. They're really good without Trae Young, apparently. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Go check it out. Back at it here on your Wednesday edition of Locked On Raptors. And we're talking Darko Rajaković, who, has gotten some praise, I think, national media-wise. Zach Lowe earlier this week on his show declared that he deserves to be in the Coach of the Year conversation early on. And I think that is exactly correct. Darko Rajaković is coaching the hell out of this team right now. And if the Raps keep up anything resembling this current pace, if they flirt with 50 wins, hell, if they go over 50 wins, which they're on pace to right now, by the way, 52, I think, is their current pace, he's going to be a deserving inner circle Coach of the Year contender. And look, this was a thing I did not think was unlikely coming into the year. I believe one of my bold predictions at the start of the season with Joseph Casciaro on our annual episode was Darko finishes top 3 in Coach of the Year voting. That's going to happen right now. If the voting were today, I would get that point that we don't keep track of because it's the bold predictions episode. And we just kind of, there's no scoring system there. But if there were, I'd be getting a point for that one because I think he's very clearly one of the top 3 Coach of the Year candidates right now. And I mean, it's wild what happens when you give a dude the green light to try and win basketball games. I think Darko, some of it was brought on himself, but I do think there was a sort of perception of Darko coming into this year that was just kind of unfair and purely the result of the team circumstances, putting him in a spot where he was in a no-win situation. And they didn't win any games in that sense, but also like if he did win games, he would have been chastised for ruining the lottery odds and all that stuff. Like I think it was a pretty tough spot for Darko to be in. His first year, you have the Pascal Siakam weirdness hanging over the team and the looming trades that were always seemingly destined to happen that year. There's just like this sort of tectonic shift in the way the team is built that was just being built, waited for, and it was always going to happen. And then it did. And then, you finally get a moment where you have the team around Scotty Barnes, and then Scotty Barnes gets hurt and Jakob Poeltl gets hurt and the season's done. And, I do think we've seen like the few moments throughout Darko's tenure before this year where he's had a chance to just like work with a team for a bit and see what they've got. The results have been good. And I think you could have predicted that things were going to go pretty well based on that when Darko finally was given a team and again, the green light with with which to go ahead and try to win with that team. And so, and look, again, I think, some of the perception was a little bit of his own doing. The pizza party thing in his rookie season as the coach was, let's be real, like pretty amateurish, right? Like, oh yeah, the professional basketball players get a pizza party for winning three straight games. Wonderful stuff. And like, I don't have a grand big picture problem with that necessarily. I think everyone has their own approach of how to, relate to their team. And I trust him to press the right buttons, knowing these guys more than I certainly do from the outside, or any sort of Tom, Dick, or Harry watching from the outside does. Maybe the pizza party thing was genuinely motivating. I don't know. It was, again, it kind of painted the team in sort of a negative, jokey light. I think he's learned from that, though. I think Darko is like dead serious, man. I don't think that guy's messing around. He's like a nice guy. And I think that, again, is sort of a thing that we look at with coaches, and it's sort of deemed as some kind of weakness because he's not out there being like an asshole in public to the players on his team and not calling them out publicly, and, kind of does stuff behind closed doors and is generally like a pretty jovial, happy, supportive, encouraging, positive reinforcement type of boss. But I think, as the league changes and the dynamics and the generational changes happen with the league, like, I think the way coaches relate to players and elicit buy-in is maybe the single most important thing a coach can do. The most like tangible way they can have an impact over the next guy in line. And the personability that Darko has, like, it's well regarded by everyone in the room. And you're seeing now that they're serious about winning, that it's all coming together for him. And so there's that sort of stuff he does that's the sort of unquantifiable stuff, right? The good guy stuff, the chemistry stuff, the making it feel like a family stuff. That's very obviously a strength of his. That was even when the team was bad, right? Like, you could say a lot about the Raptors of the last couple of years, but they played hard. They tried. They were totally outmanned talent-wise, and sometimes they engineered losses by sitting guys. But those teams gave a damn in those first couple of years with Darko, especially last year. He emboldened the rookies to go and sort of take ownership over the team, and now you see it with Jamal Shed in particular. Like, he is an essential part of the fabric of this team and culture. And I think that all sort of comes from top down with the coaching staff. And Darko, I think, is just so good at the soft skills. And you're seeing what that can do when you have a team that's got talent on it. And when you're able to elicit that buy-in, which is not an easy thing to do, man, there are egos and competing interests and agendas and contractual stress that hang over these guys at all times. I think a help for this season is that the Raptors don't have a lot of that contractual stress, right? Most guys are locked in. Yes, there's uncertainty about RJ Barrett. He's got a year and a half left. We'll see what happens with his next contract. But for the most part, these guys know, hey, like, I'm going to be here. I'm paid to be here. And if I'm not, I've been traded and I'm still somewhere getting a lot of money. And it's a lot of young guys kind of fighting for their shot at things, right? And I think that's like a healthy competition thing you have going in the second unit. And so, yeah, it feels like the environment that Darko's fostered here is one that's conducive to good team chemistry. And I think, look, winning helps obviously, and losing is like the biggest hit to chemistry you'll ever see. And it's a real chicken or egg thing, right? Does winning beget good chemistry? Does chemistry beget good winning? Chicken or egg doesn't matter. Like, Darko's the farmer overseeing it all. And I think that has been a real core strength of his. And then again, you start to have him coach a team that's trying to win, and you get to see him flex his X's and O's might as well. And I think we're seeing a lot of really good on-court coaching stuff from Darko as well. I mean, there's the stuff we've talked about with the defense, right? I think he's shown an adaptability on the fly that maybe more stubborn coaches would say, hey, we're only 15 games into the season. I'm going to try to do what I want to do here, and the team is going to have to come and meet me where I am. I think instead, Darko's really met the team where they are and has really adapted to the personnel. Came in, all right, we're going to play this crazy high pressure defense. We're going to pick up full court and do the whole thing. And that wasn't working. They were 1-4. The defense was a disaster. And I think he noticed, hey, we have a different type of team here than we've had in the past. Our offense, wow, like, they can score. We got a chance here. we can change the way we approach this. We can dial back the aggression to make it more selective. They're still aggressive at heart, I think, but it's been way more selective. They've been way more sort of rigid and in position than they were in those first few games where they were just completely unspooled. Part of this is just playing together more, right? Like you learn your teammates, learn how to defend as a team with one another. That's all reps and stuff too. But I think you've very clearly seen changes in strategy that have fit what the team is doing. They, as far as like the way the offense is running, the lack of offensive rebound crashing that we've talked about a little bit, like that feels like a direct line from, well, the offense is pretty good now. We just don't necessarily have to do the Houston Rockets thing where everything is a miss, so we have to go collect them all. We're hitting a lot of our first shots when we get the ball and run a possession, whether it's in the half court or transition. So, okay, let's dial it back a bit and let's focus on transition defense. Let's pluck that low hanging fruit instead of the offensive rebounding thing. And I just think like he seems to have a great handle of what his team is good at, how to use his guys. He's managing the politics of having 5 starters who all make a lot of money, I think pretty well. In addition to that, like, yeah, maybe the starters should not be their heaviest used lineup based on the results so far this year, but also like you got to play the politics game a little bit over the course of a regular season. And I think that's really the thing that really stands out to me as far as those soft skills and the sort of big picture understanding that Darko has. Like he seems to really have a handle on how to do it sustainably over 82 games to optimize a win total. And he's doing that down to the minutes distribution, right? Like he's not out here rolling guys out for 38 minutes a night like a certain former Raptors coach who they may or may not be playing against tonight has done with his guys all year. And, look at the Sixers, right? Like Tyrese Maxey playing all the minutes in the world. VJ Edgecombe has already hit the rookie wall because he's playing all the minutes in the world. Embiid, George, Oubre, all out. That's not because of minutes necessarily, but still, you're seeing with Darko, there's a way more balanced approach here. And there's a long game in mind with what he's doing. Ingram leads the team at 33.4 minutes. Scotty Barnes playing 32.5 minutes a night. I think that suggests a great understanding of what it takes to navigate 82 games, right? This was always the concern with Nick Nurse was he treated every single game like it was life and death. And so he'd play 7 guys and his circle of trust was super tiny. And it was great for that night because you're probably going to win. But in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't terribly sustainable. And I think we're seeing that here with Darko. He's got a handle of how to navigate a long slog of a season. And, who's to say if they're going to stay healthy? But I think all you can do with injuries, which are very much out of your control, is control what you can control. And minutes load is probably that. And using your depth and not putting too much on guys early in the season is a way you can go about doing what you can do to prevent injuries as much as you can do that. And you're seeing the Raptors right now, knock on all the pieces of wood in the world. They're a healthy team. They've had their guys. They are deep. They have a lot of dudes who are getting run, who can fill in the gaps. And in the event injuries do happen. And I think that's a testament again to the sort of long game understanding that Darko has. And then lastly, I mean, you want to look at like tangible, quantifiable stuff that he's kicking ass at right now. He is just drawing up all kinds of wonderful stuff on sideline out of bound plays, after timeout plays, baseline inbound plays. You might notice when you're watching the game and feel like, oh yeah, they're running this stuff from the baseline, or they're throwing in a sideline inbound, and they're getting a lot of good stuff out of it. They're scoring pretty often coming out of timeouts. I think Darko's use of timeouts this year has been great. Hasn't been afraid to call the early one when things aren't going well in a half to kind of settle things down. Has been, I think, very good at sort of picking the right spots to press pause and then have them come out and sort of restart themselves pretty well on the first possession out of those timeouts and set themselves up for success. Like, I think that's been a real strength. And just going into the numbers per synergy, the Raptors right now are number 1 in sideline out of bounds plays efficiencies, sideline out of bounds plays efficiency. There we go. Slob efficiency. There we go. 1.37 points per possession. First in the league by a lot on sideline out of bounds plays, beating out the likes of the Denver Nuggets, who have literally Nikola Jokic, the Miami Heat, who have Eric Spoelstra, the OKC Thunder. Mark Dagnall was once considered the king of the out-of-bounds play. I remember the days with Josh Giddey and what they draw up, and he was just getting all the plaudits for that. Raptors are better than the Thunder in all of these areas as well. They are better than Detroit, who round out the top 5 in sideline out-of-bounds. And they are like 1.2 points per 100 ahead of the Nuggets when it comes to what they're getting on these sideline out-of-bounds. Like, they are first by a bullet, with a bullet, by a mile, whatever, with a mile. Who knows? They're fifth in baseline out of bounds plays as well, 1.14 points per possession behind the Clippers. Ty Lue, pretty good coach. The Bulls, Billy Donovan, always does more than he should with the teams he has. Good coach. JJ Redick, we know that guy draws up cool stuff. The New York Knicks, Mike Brown, pretty good offensive mind. The Raptors fifth in those possessions, and then sixth in after timeout plays as well. Darko's just doing a hell of a job, man, and he's doing it in all kinds of different ways, and I think it's been a real treat to see him kind of settle in and, again, just have license to play a winning brand of basketball and press the buttons in the interest of winning, as opposed to trying to dial back the chances of the team winning strategically over the course of games. He's been awesome. And if this keeps up, Coach of the Year, Darko Rajaković, has a pretty nice ring to it. We're going to come back on the side, close things out with a look at Mamu, who has been pivotal to this team early on, has been a ton of fun to watch. One of the most enjoyable free agent signings I think we've ever seen play for the Raptors. And running entirely counter to my argument off the top of just enjoying it and savoring the moment, we're going to talk about the future of Mamu and why it might be time to start thinking about how they can keep this guy around, because he is pretty damn crucial. We're going to come back and do that in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad software as a disservice. That is why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. You get everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access, runs automatically and perfectly in sync for you as well. And it's simple to use. It gives companies one source of truth for their entire staff, your data, everything you touch. And they can do it all for you. Or if you have some stuff that you feel like you got handled, they can just fill in the gaps in your software stack as well. Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedInNBA. That's rippling.com/LockedInNBA to learn more. That's rippling.com/LockedInNBA for 6 months for free. Today's show is also brought to you by Doer, the makers of some of the best jeans you will ever own. I have a pair. They're delightful, and I cannot recommend them enough. And Doer, right now in Toronto, you can go and check out their new store at 44 Ossington Avenue. Great spot. Nice. Walk the street there in Ossington and have yourself some lunch, maybe get a couple of drinks, and then go and get yourself some pants at the Doer store at 44 Ossington. And like I said, I have a pair. I have the fleece-lined black taper jeans, and they are extremely comfortable and nice and warm. I had to do some yard work this week with the temperatures cooling down and the leaves out back I got to rake up, and having those on as my outdoor wear has been really nice in those chilly temperatures. And I cannot recommend them enough. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without sacrificing style. Pick up a pair for yourself at the 44 Ossington Avenue store, or you can get them as an amazing holiday gift as well. Mention the promo code LOCKEDONToronto in store and get 15% off your first order, or check them out online at duer.ca/LockedOnToronto for 15% off. That's doer.ca/LockedOnToronto. Go check them out. Back at it here on your Wednesday edition of Locked On Raptors. As a bit of a grab bag of topics today, some sentimentals, some praise of Darko Rajaković, and now some alarmism for the offseason, because why not? Truth be told, I'm not yet alarmed about this thing, because I'm of the mind, and maybe this is my blind spot as a host of a podcast that covers a team, I appreciate that contracts are important and that they are something that are very important to sort of determining the sustainability of a team build and all of that stuff. I also tend to think there are people who are paid more than me to figure this stuff out because they're smarter than me at this stuff. And where there's a will, there's a way when it comes to contractual stuff. But with Mamu in particular, our boy Sandro Mamukelashvili, it is, I think, getting interesting to think about what his future holds here in Toronto. And the sort of thing that really comes to mind is, or the sort of recent example that comes to mind when you're thinking about comps for him and how his free agency might go, is Bruce Brown, who you remember when he had that season with the Nuggets where they won the championship, he was on a minimum contract and he had no bird rights. So the Nuggets had no bird rights on him. And so what that means is they weren't able to offer him enough money on a raise to stick around, and they had to, essentially he had to go to free agency. They would have only been able to sign him as a free agent, and so you'll lose some of the advantages that you typically get for keeping your own guys when it's someone who's on a 1-year minimum deal without those bird rights. We saw Bruce Brown go and sign with the Indiana Pacers, who had a lot of cap space, way more money than the Nuggets were ever going to be able to throw at Bruce Brown. And so they lose him. And now he's back. Everyone's happy, but that was the sort of outcome there with Bruce and the Nuggets. That could be what we see here with Mamu, who, if I'll remind you, is on a minimum contract with a player option for next year. And at this rate, he is going to be denying that player option for $2.5 million or whatever it is, because he's been awesome. He's been one of the best bench players in basketball, one of the single most impactful players in terms of on-off differential of anyone in the league. And he's transformed the way the Raptors play, because it's given Scotty Barnes a spacing big to go and play with in second units. And it's just had an incredible sort of trickle down effect on the way the team plays, the way they can optimize their minutes with Scotty. He's been awesome. And I think it's not too early to start thinking about, damn, what if he is a one and done Raptor? Can we stomach this? Is this okay? And hey, maybe say, well, it's all right. You can just go find another guy like that. Find another good minimum player. If guys like that fell off of trees, we wouldn't have been sitting in this position where the Raptors are hunting for a good backup big for years. They've got one now, and because he's only 26 and because he is, kind of bringing skills to the table that are just very much at home in the modern NBA, and because he is checking the single most important box for anyone on this team, which is, does he further optimize this team for Scotty Barnes? Hard yes on that for Mamu. I do think it's worth starting to think about, okay, what are the outcomes here when you get to the offseason? Can you keep this guy around? And look, we should also say, it's no guarantee he's going to keep shooting 45% from three and carrying an incredible on-off differential and being this effective. He probably won't. People don't usually shoot this well all season long. I think he's near a 70% true shooting, if not higher. That's crazy stuff, and it probably won't hold over the course of the whole season. But the impact of the skill set he brings to the table, I think very much will. And I think his impact on Scotty Barnes, that's going to transfer whether Mamu's hitting 45% of his threes or 38% of his threes. Having a stretch big next to Scotty makes a lot of sense. It works. And so because of that, I think you have to start to map this thing out. And the Raptors have a lot of money locked up, right? They have their core 5 guys all making a lot of money. They're going to have to pay Grady Dick potentially very soon. If he plays like he has so far this year, he'll probably be in line for an extension next year. Maybe they ride it to restricted free agency and see from there. Maybe that's the way to go. But he's going to be looking for a deal. And, there's only so much money to go around in this very fun, cool second apron world the NBA has wrought, where keeping teams together is hard and keeping good players around requires tough decisions. And so as it stands right now, based on our fellow nerds in the Locked On Raptors Discord who think about cap stuff way more than, healthy people should. Hi, Ben. As it stands from their sort of sleuthing into this, the Raptors can probably offer Sandro Mamukelashvili about $9 million a year as a starting point. If all is just the same right now, you factor in not wanting to be over the first apron, being in the tax, having your mid-level tax, your taxpayer mid-level available to you, all of this stuff. The boring nuts and bolts of contractual stuff in the NBA. But the most important takeaway here is, as it stands right now, if all of the players are just on the team as they are, they make no trades, it looks like $9 million or so for Mamu as a starting point. Maybe that gets it done. Maybe that gets him to, sign a 4-year, $36 million deal or something like that. Or maybe it's a shorter, 2+1 or something like that gets Mamu to stick around, starting with that $9 million salary. We've seen the market for role players has kind of dried up a little bit in recent years, and guys used to be mid-level guys or $20 million a year guys are making a little less than that. And so maybe that's where Mamu settles in. He just got a minimum contract, right? If he got $9 million, it's a pretty substantial raise. Maybe that's enough to keep him around, especially if he's happy. Maybe he does the Shane Bieber thing that we just saw with the Blue Jays, where he's like, I like friendship. I'm going to opt into my contract when no one expected me to. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think he's going to be well over $2.5 million on the open market. And there's a chance the Raptors just lose him, right? If some team comes in and offers more than the mid-level for Mamu and gets crazy this summer, then you're not going to be able to keep him unless you really change the shape of your team. And that's, a tough thing to do for a bench guy. And we've seen, right, the Raptors have gotten into trouble sort of overcommitting themselves to role players before. Thad Young, Chris Boucher, Kem Birch. Like, you can certainly paint yourself into a financial corner by handing out these sort of small to medium deals to bench players. I think the difference between those guys and Mamu is that Mamu is just like a clear, obvious upgrade and fit over those guys with Scotty Barnes, most importantly. And so it changes the calculus there. But yeah, I mean, the Scotty Mamu lineups, they're undeniable right now, man. They're just incredible. They're a 121 offensive rating, 99.2 defensive rating, a plus 21.8 net rating in Scotty plus Mamu lineups. All other lineups that the Raptors have, minus Mamu, a minus 0.4 net rating. He has been incredibly important, and it's not too early to start thinking about what you might have to do this summer. And look, there's ways you can get creative, right? Maybe there's eventually an RJ Barrett trade. I know that people don't want to hear that right now, but maybe RJ Barrett gets moved eventually for a cheaper salary in that spot, more of a 3-and-D type. Who's to say? Maybe they just find a way. Maybe Jacoby Walter continues to struggle this year, and they find a way to dump his salary, save $1 million or so from his rookie scale deal to the minimum guy you'd replace him with, and that's a little extra money to throw Mamu's way. There's a lot to be sorted out, and Mamu could totally just become a pumpkin from here to the end of the year, and that would make the decisions very easy as well. We'll see, but I just don't think it's too early in this particular case to start thinking about Mamu's future, because that guy's been awesome. He's been so fun, and at this point, I don't know if I can stomach just having him be a one-and-done Raptor and seeing him go be the spark plug that he is for some other team for more money next year. And so I hope it's on their radar. And if he keeps playing like this, it will inevitably have to be on their radar, because he's just going to make it a decision that they got to make, and they got to sort of make other tough decisions to try to make it all work to keep Mamu around, because he's great. And those guys don't grow on trees, man. Dudes who rip 38% on above the break threes. I mean, he's been better than that this year. Like, that's a hard thing to find. And when you got one, maybe you got to hold on to him in this modern NBA, where that's a really valuable skill set. Either way, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for rocking with the show. As always, back again on Thursday with Katie Hunt to talk about Raptors, Sixers, maybe a 5th win in a row. Wouldn't that be a lot of fun? You can, of course, always join the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast, 100% free to join. Would love to see you there. And yeah, we'll be back again very soon. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll talk to you then on Thursday as we break it all down. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Ugh.